You are listening to the Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Totally Drunk, Spider, and Slambo.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 107, we're going to be taking a look at some of the more recent off-season moves. Some of them are a little bit more baffling than others. We have Harrisburg becoming the first collegiate team to sign a professional player. And, the Mayhem are actually one of the few teams who are making use of their tournament license, and so much more. But before we can jump into the news and introduce you to my co-host tonight, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And, of course, I have to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So, as you can tell, we are back at full strength. We are back from the holidays. Obviously, we had our Christmas special, which was a lot of fun to put together. So we had, four of us together, piecing all of that. Really good time, and it was kind of nice having just a week off in general. Spent a lot of time with the family, all of that good stuff. But tonight, I am joined by both Anura and Booger. But Anura, starting with you, how's the past, couple of weeks been treating you, since it's been, a little bit of time since we've spoke?
Right, I'm glad there's no storms in the way now, so I'll be able to be on more, but, so far it's been well. I went over and I got to go to a Browns game, and I got to see the Browns lose terribly to the Ravens. But it was a good time. Just me, my dad, and my brother. We just had fun drinking, so it was a good time just hanging out. And then Christmas was great, just normal family stuff. Got to see my sister and family again, so it's really nice.
Awesome. And Booger, I know you were involved with the Christmas special. How were the holidays for you, man?
The holidays were good. I actually experienced a little bit of an Overwatch Christmas miracle. It was a day after Christmas, and I had some free time, and I was playing comp. And I queued for all three roles, and it put me in as DPS. And I thought that would be an impossibility, but it happened. It was a Christmas miracle. And I got some good sim time in, so that's my Christmas Overwatch.
And for those that don't know, if you log into Overwatch, you do have 5 free loot boxes. Of course, that was a gift over the holidays as well, so be sure to go open your freebies on that end. For me, it's been kind of a quiet, past couple of weeks. The Christmas special was really entertaining to piece together, getting to do, other voiceover work on that end. But, it's been kind of quiet on the streaming front just because, with the holidays going on, I basically took the entire week off, so I've basically, when I've been on Twitch, it hasn't been me streaming, it's been me actually tuning into other people's streams, so looking forward to jumping back in with the new year going into this next week. So, outside of that, of course, we're here to talk about Overwatch League, and, we do have a little bit of news on the contenders front, as well as what is going on around the league. So to start things off, we do have a former Overwatch League pro, who is joining Overwatch Contenders in this upcoming season, because, Contenders is right around the corner, because it kicks off here in probably about, a week and a half at this point, with the seed-in tournament. And the person in question is Reaper, who has joined the London Spitfire Academy team, that being none other than a British Hurricane. So this is the sole new addition to the team, and, Reaper is coming from the LA Gladiators, and, he is a flex support in this regard, and this follows Bach 1's decision to retire back in early October. But what's interesting about this is kind of the landscape of Contenders Europe kind of shifted a little bit this past week. So for those that haven't been, paying too much close attention to the Tier 2 news, we also had a pretty notable team out of Europe in Team Giganti actually disbanded, which was a huge blow to Europe across the board. So, some pretty big names available on the market. And, there were, of course, murmurs about, like, buyouts and all of that good stuff. But you have the British Hurricane here, who have been looking pretty good in breaking barriers. And they're entering the new season with only 6 people on their roster. And kind of like a short tint coaching staff, as well as they only have 2 coaches right now currently. So Contenders is going to kick off on January 6th, and that will be with the seeded tournament. But, looking back, we didn't get to see a ton of Reaper in the Overwatch League when he was part of the Gladiators. So how do you guys feel like he's going to adjust and making the move over to, just a starting position again?
All right, so I really think Repo wanted the starting spot no matter what. I think he was hungry for it. I don't think Gladiators could take it because Shaz is just so good. Shaz is just insane. But I think Repo really, really wanted this. And so I know he wanted an Overwatch League position, but just getting a starting spot in general just shows that he's still hungry. I think he's going to be hungry and really like just take this by the horn. Speaking of Ginganti, I feel like that's a really loss for EU Contenders because I know a lot of people came from that place. A lot of Gladiators players actually came from Ginganti as well. So I know I'm really sad to see them go as well. But for Reaper, I'm excited to see him play again.
Yeah, Reaper really had like the backup role, and it's going to be interesting to see how much he learned from riding the bench behind 2 of the best support players in the Overwatch League. So maybe he can perform well in Contenders and earn a spot on another team in Overwatch League. We'll have to see how that goes. But, him being on the bench isn't really show a whole lot about his skill because the people he was behind on the bench with, were very, very good players. So he almost would have had that role of just in case somebody gets sick or can't make a game kind of thing. So now for him to have like a starting role to see how he actually can perform consistently, that'll be very, very good to showcase, his opportunities for other teams within the Overwatch League if he can perform well.
Yeah, this would be someone that's probably more suited as a potential like mid-season signing for the Overwatch League. But just the landscape of EU is going to be looking completely different because you look at some of the other teams out there, like Clockwork Vendetta. Like a ton of those pieces have been getting shifted around and moved into better opportunities. What said opportunities are, we don't know yet. But at least the Hurricane, they have been keeping busy with these off-season tournaments that have been going on. So even with like a late addition headed into the new season, you have to peg them as one of the earlier favorites to potentially take it all in regards to this next season of Contenders Europe. But that is not the only like tier 2/tier 3 news that we got. Is we actually got a couple of other things happening here as of late. So next up, we have a professional player actually moving over to collegiate Overwatch. And this is a pretty big deal. You have Elk, who was, formerly on Fusion University, paired with Alarm on that absolutely ridiculous, support duo back in the day. And then you also got to see him a little bit with the main roster on the Philadelphia Fusion to probably not the best success because he was playing an off role at the time, let's be real. But Elk is joining Harrisburg University. Now, if that name sounds familiar, at least on the Philadelphia side, that's probably because their head coach is also a former Fusion main support player, that being Joe Meister. And this news comes a day after you had Nerd Street Gamers, also out of the Philly area. They announced a partnership with Harrisburg to launch an esports degree program. Now, Harrisburg is a team that really made a name for themselves as one of the top collegiate esports team in the US. And, they also won their first collegiate national championship earlier in the fall. That, of course, being, the Harrisburg Storm. So I have to say, like, looking at this is a pretty big deal. It does allow, a lot of these Overwatch players an alternative path outside of the path to pro, whether it is for tier 2 or tier 3, and seeing more and more universities starting to come in and kind of like jump behind collegiate esports as well as offering, free rides to college is just so welcome to see, because it gives people more chances, more opportunities to not only pursue, a career that they're interested in doing, but, also not completely abandon, just their education as a whole, which a lot of players are currently doing right now when they are in the middle of the grind. So, Booger, like, what are your thoughts on this alternate path that we could start to see more and more players taking moving forward?
I really think this should be the future of how the path to pro works. If you really look at like every other successful pro sport, they find their talent from universities. You'll have exceptions that are like game breakers that'll skip through playing at college level, but that's really where a lot of pro sports get their talent. And also, Elk, watching him in that Breaking Barriers tournament, his Baptiste was absolutely nutty. Like 100% could be Overwatch League level. So seeing the choice to play collegiate is very welcome. Like I would really like to see that I would like to see that be how a lot of players go forward. And if universities really start supporting it as an esport, then it really could be the future of how the Overwatch League finds talent. And for with the way that Contenders has been, it seems like it would be a much better option too, because with Contenders, they're having, it's no secret that the money is a little bit of an issue. So who has bigger pockets than universities? Like that is an excellent way to get funding, to get teams, and just all around great for the sport. I really want to see more players doing that, especially young talent. That would be really great to see.
Yeah, so with Elk joining Harrisburg, I think it's a huge opportunity for a lot of people. I think Booger said it really well. It's if this works out well, if you are a player that you have other problems and you can't make it Overwatch League for certain reasons, or your parents don't agree with it, you'd be like, "Hey, look, I can get a degree off this. Please let me keep playing Overwatch League, like not Overwatch League, but Overwatch, and can really join." I think both Joe Meister and Elk can really prove that collegiate is a path that you can take for all players.
And to also think like to have universities be the feeding into the Overwatch League, we all know the overall age of the Overwatch League players is very, very low. And I don't think that has to do with the skills being there more for people that are young, but because once you get older, you can't play games full time. You have to, have a job and have a life. So this kind of gives like a transitional period, which would be make it more possible to dedicate to esports full time, to allow people that otherwise wouldn't be able to ever play esports because they couldn't dedicate the time will have a path in. I think it really is the future of how to do esports.
You look at like how much young talent there is in the Overwatch scene that are dubbed as like these young prodigies. So a lot of them are in a situation where, like, even if they get picked up by an academy team, in some cases they're 13, 14 years old. Like, who knows what the longevity is going to be or how long the game is going to, hold their interest. But, for all those players that are, 17, entering, just finishing up high school, who are kind of like torn on, what to do with their lives at that point, it at least gives them a chance to continue to pursue, what their passion is, plus not really have to deal with all of the expenses that goes along with applying to a college, so they don't have to worry about any student loans or any crap like that. And everyone knows like how bad student debt is nowadays. It is absolutely atrocious. So to be able to get a free ride to college just playing Overwatch, is pretty enticing, especially when in a lot of these cases they're not really making a ton of bank on the path to pro in its current form right now. So hopefully this is just going to be the first step of many to come in regards to supporting collegiate esports even further. And hopefully Elk is going to be able to continue to bring the magic to the Storm, just like he did when he was on Fusion University. But I love how close like everything is in regards to Philadelphia, with all these partnerships coming through, and hopefully Elk will be able to finish his degree and make his way back into the Overwatch League sometime down the line, and maybe even get realigned with Alarm sooner rather than later. Now, outside of that, of course, it is the off season, so we do have a couple of releases as well as a couple of signings here. And we do know that the Chengdu Hunters have departed with two of their players. The two players are not returning for 2020. The first one is their DPS player, Yun Xiaolong, as well as one of their main tanks in Chi Ren. So both of their contracts have been terminated by the team, and both of these players had came from Miraculous Youngster, which was, one of the Chinese super teams that really dominated back in 2017 when they won titles in the Overwatch Premier Series. And I know there was also kind of like a recent leak that happened this week in regards to like this anniversary event with RNG that showed a few other additions to the team out of LGE Hua, which was their support line of Lenza, who is a main support, and Molly, who is the LGE Flex support. Then it also listed, their coaching staff, with one of their former players, Gary, moving over to the staff to join Ray Dokebi, who I'm pretty sure is also from LGE Hua, as well as Jay. So I know, like, going back in regards to, like, the recent Hunters additions, we were kind of confused about, like, how there was a lot of overlap with the tanks, where, maybe we thought, like, a main would be more of a ball specialist, and then you could kind of, like, split between the new edition as well as Chi Ren, but no matter what roles that they were going to be filling, it seemed like there was going to be, like, 3 players competing at each tank spot. Now that's not going to be the case. So, Nora, like, what do you think the landscape is looking like right now for the Hunters, knowing that there's not going to be as much to fight for in regards to those specific roles?
Really, I feel like their team is getting pretty good. I like the additions. I think every single one of them. I don't remember all of them right now, but I remember all of them that I really liked. To be honest, but the only thing I'm worried about is the coaching staff for this team. I think the players, they have the surprise factor they always had. I really like the additions. The additions seem like they're just like a really good Chinese team. I feel like they're going to surprise a lot of people, especially the way the traveling's working. Um, I don't think teams that aren't prepared for them won't be able to handle them. This change for them, I think, is going to be pretty big.
And we saw quite a bit of Young Zhao Long playing last season, but we didn't really see Jakirin that much. With them having Leave coming in, it almost makes me think that they were seeing too much overlap with what Leave would play and Young Zhao Long would be playing. So that would make sense that they wouldn't want that overlap. But I do like to see players on a team move into a coaching role with the same team. So that they have a new person in the coaching role, but they know how the team works already, and they know like the atmosphere that they're going to have, so it doesn't have to feel all the way new. So I think that seeing them have coaches that come from their team is overall a very positive thing. And I think that this really is just showing that they might be doubling down to stay the Wrecking Ball team. If Aming is really good at Wrecking Ball, we saw in some of those open tournaments there were teams with success on Wrecking Ball, and if they can do it, then the hunters will be able to do it. So that makes me really excited to watch them play, just to know that it almost seems like they might be doubling down on that unorthodox style that they showed us last year. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that with the addition to Leave to this DPS line, that we are going to see in a more consistent and upgraded version of Jinmu, knowing that there's just so much flexibility covered between the two of them, where you're probably not going to be playing Bacon Jack a whole lot in 2020 just because of how many different heroes Leaf can play. Because heck, we've seen him play 20 plus heroes in the World Cup in years past on the China World Cup team on that front. But this is a team who we're still waiting for the official announcement in regards to like the LGE HIWA side of things. But it makes sense for them to just transition over to the main roster, so keeping everything in house, always great to see. And like, while all of that isn't going to be as baffling, there has been a couple of moves here lately that have really kind of shaken things up in regards to how the community has perceived these teams. Now, one of them is from the San Francisco Shock, which we'll get into here in just a few minutes, but let's talk about the London Spitfire here, who have essentially finalized their roster going into the 2020 season. And they recently added 4 new additions to this team. Now, the new additions to the team are Babel, Jihoon, Although, and Clayston, who probably only a very select few people know of half of them, let alone all of them. So, you have Babel, who most recently played in Trials Korea. He was a DPS player on BM Hawk. You had Although, who is a Tier 3 player who had played in qualifiers on Gen S, which is one of the sister teams of Gen G Esports, that, of course, being, the Dynasty Academy team, but, like, they have at least 2 sister teams, and I'm pretty sure that's the lesser of the 2 just based on the lettering. That's also a DPS player. They have Jaehoon, who is a Wrecking Ball specialist who was competed in Contenders China this past year, and that was on Bubble Burster Gaming, and he is primarily known as a Wrecking Ball specialist. Then to round it out, you have a Flex Tank from Team Griffin, that being Clayston, who was more known for his Diva and Zarya, but this again is a Contenders Korea Trials player. So you have a lot of like these lesser known names entering the fold, which kind of matches the MO from what we have seen from London basically all off season. And I know, like, going in, even before we knew about these additions to the team, a lot of us were just kind of like trying to figure out like where exactly we're going to be placing this team. Because, they might have like 1, maybe 2 notable names when you look at the roster as a whole. But on paper, there's just so much unknown talent on this team that it's kind of hard to gauge just how good they are going to be against the rest of the field. So, Booker, I have to ask, like, I'm assuming you probably are not familiar with any of these players, so, like, do you think that bodes well for how the Spitfire are going to do, or are you just so cautious about where you're going to be ranking this team in particular?
Yeah, I have no clue how to rank the Spitfire right now. I did not know about any of these players before Spitfire announced their signings. Um, Either that tells me Spitfire is going budget, they're trying to save money and maybe build a championship roster again in the future, or they've got some really good scouts that were on top of some signings that other teams weren't. Um, which one of those two? I guess we're probably gonna have to wait wait a little while to see how it goes, see how they're gonna play. Um, yeah, London. We keep making jokes about how the Valiant are the broke team, but it might be possible that London's pretty broke too. Either that, or they have good scouts. It's just one of those things that we'll have to see when the season starts.
Yeah, this team, I'm super excited to see how they play. I think London's testing how deep the Korean talent is, because these players are unknown. unknown. I like the Mini Mang. Was it Aldo? Was that the ball player? I like that. I like that pickup. I think I think that's gonna be interesting. I really think this team's gonna be really fun to watch. Either they're gonna fall flat or just surprise teams.
Hmm.
I think the coaching is really. I think they have great coaches, so I only could expect that this team's at least gonna be well coached. But other than that, I this team's a complete mystery, and I love it.
Yeah, it was Jihoon who was the ball specialist
June?
because he,
Okay.
he names himself after his last name. But like for me, like when you look at the breakdown of this team, you have a support line who like we still don't know who's gonna start between Hylie and Krillin. Like, are they going to unlock Krillin's superpower after all of this time to see how the latter hero is going to do in the Overwatch League? I don't know. But, like, they only have 3 DPS on the roster right now between Shui, Babel, and all those. So, like, you have 2 relative unknowns on that regard. And then you have Shui, who, of course, was coming from Runaway as, you know, their projectile specialist. So that's going to be a lot of pressure on a rookie player coming into the league. So I honestly like don't quite know where to rank this team. You can definitely make a case for they're probably going to be in the bottom 5, but there is just so much unknown that it's kind of just hard to like quantify that. Like I'm curious to see just how well this team is going to do because you really don't know how so many rookies can do on one specific team, and this is a complete overhaul of their roster compared to, you know, the team that they had this past year. So I'm just gonna hope for the best. Hopefully their tank line is going to be able to open up the space that these currently unknown DPS need. But this team could floor a lot of people and, you know, maybe have a few surprises up their sleeves. So I cannot wait to see what's going to happen for them moving forward. So right now, it might be better to rank them later on while we rate all the other teams, and then they'll just be that team that like fills in one of the gaps potentially. But outside of that, we also have a new addition to last season's champions of the San Francisco Shock, who have added someone that was competed in their boot camp in Korea, because I guess it was kind of like terrorizing the Shock in some of these scrims that have been going on. So they went out and they signed a sniper specialist in ANS, who had played for Blossom in Contenders Korea, who is known primarily for his accuracy on Widowmaker and Hanzo. Now, the way that the Shock kind of like revealed this signing was through a YouTube video on their channel where they were showcasing 20 of ANS's best plays. Of course, all of them were on Widowmaker, so everyone was just kind of like confused initially. There was like this state of shock about this signing in particular, and it's just it was a case of like you look back. And for the Shock, it was a fairly quiet offseason. Like, this is the first addition to the team. This offseason, at least. The only other move that they had was releasing their backup off-tank in Nefix, who, you know, would eventually go on to get picked up by the Toronto Defiant. But, you know, you see all of these criticisms being placed on the Shock, and it's just so reminiscent of what we saw from them this past season, because a lot of people were criticizing them for loading up on DPS players, because going into 2019, they did have 5 DPS players. But, you know, you look at it and, you know, I look at this kind of like how I look at the chips sign in a situation where they're just trying to patch a hole should the meta shift. And a lot of people are just looking at it like, well, like, why do you need a Widowmaker player on your lineup? Why wouldn't you just have, you know, Striker or Architect to fill that particular position? And, you know, like, I feel like at the end of the day, just like the chips assigning with the Fusion, the Shock are looking at this as one of two things. One, Odds completely was a carry during these Korean boot camps. And, you know, Shock are maybe like one of like 5 or 6 teams who are actively boot camping and have been for a while at this point. And 2, this is just a low risk sign-in for them as a whole. Like, is he going to see play? Maybe, maybe not. But You always want to be in a position where if the meta shifts that you're going to be able to put someone in, and maybe with some of the recent striker play, or maybe because he hasn't been starting full time, maybe there's a little bit of shaken confidence on that end where they feel like ANS is going to be a solid addition to this team. And who knows, like maybe there's actually going to be more depth than what people are actually seeing on the surface, regardless of him being a sniper specialist. But I want to get your thoughts on this because, for the most part, it seems like the general reaction has just been a lot of confusing emotions by the community here as of late.
Yeah, so for this signing, I really think it was just fill a hole, like you were saying earlier. With the whole striker, he was trying to learn Widow. There's a lot of rumors of him just playing Widow, like straight up, just the whole time. I don't think it worked out for them. I think even so, he wasn't what they needed to be on Widow. I think he's better on some other heroes. I think ANS is just a really good pickup that no one was thinking of. He retired because of goats, and I guess Shock still had him in his names. Also, Krusty, what is like handpicking this kid and is training him himself. So I really do believe in this kid. Everyone thought Widow was their fault. Their one like problem on that team. I really think that they just filled it. They just filled the hole. Which is it's a good signing. It's unknown. Also, that the Widowmaker highlight clips was not how you're supposed to announce. That was bad. But I think it's a good thing. I think he's gonna surprise. I think he just wasn't known in the Western audience for sure.
Okay, I'm gonna say I think that the highlight clips is a great way to announce the player because, a lot of us hadn't heard a whole lot about him before. So to see how he plays, even though some of them were literally from like free for all deathmatch clips, so maybe that's not the best kind of highlights to use. But we got to look at this guy. He was playing boot camping with the Shock, who, they still hold the title for the best team in the league. And he played really good enough to get signed. So, he's not some slump just coming in that they needed to fill a slot. Like, they did not have to sign anybody else to maintain the title of the best team right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he must be really, really good. And, he mentioned something on one of those videos that he wants to be the funniest member of the Shock or something like that. So maybe he's gonna have like a Pine style role where it's like, oh, the Shock are, oh no, they're not gonna do that because there's not gonna have any maps that don't matter this year. So he won't be just the map 4 when 3 or 1 player. So I don't know, maybe we'll see that Widowmaker is very useful in certain maps, but also we have been seeing Hanzo in the meta. So they said that he was good with Widow and Hanzo. Maybe making the highlight clip all Widowmaker shots, that might be kind of like a little bit of a debate to the rest of the teams. And when the season starts, he's going to pull out a nasty Hanzo that nobody's expecting. So maybe the Shocker looking for the shock factor. We'll just see if he gets any playtime coming up.
I forgot to mention this, but with 5 DPS, do you think one of the players wants to leave? Like wants to try to find a starting position somewhere else instead of having to take a break, take a stage or 2 off? Because I feel like Striker did not get his chance until the playoffs. Sinatra got knocked out and he's the MVP. Like Architect, Rascal, these are big names. I don't know if they want to be rotated like this as much. Maybe they're trying to put ANS in as the player that could rotate while they try to trade someone out.
Well, having 5 DPS kind of makes financial sense because they got paid when they sold off Baby Bay last season.
Right.
So now, maybe they're like, we're good enough. We can sell off one of our players and still be the best. It just makes kind of sense to have 5 for them because they feel so solid with the other roles.
Right. I really just want to see Rascal and Gladiators. That's why I brought it up. But anyway,
so we can take over the Baptiste role.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Shaz is pretty good at that too. He's in he's not ranked 1 right now, I think.
Yeah, I will say, like, in regards to, like, the way that they revealed the on-sign in, it's like, okay, at least right out of the gate, like, they did, like, the graphic of who it was, and then they went into the clips. But, like, after the first, like, 4, I was like, okay, like, that's, I'm good.
I get it.
So like for me, like seeing 20 was a little bit much, especially for like a frag compilation when all of them weren't from like notable matches to say the least. But I'm really curious to see what role he's gonna fill. Obviously, like just knowing he's a sniper specialist and knowing that there's a lot of Hansume, I would assume that we'll probably be seeing him and probably Rascal on the May for this particular team on that end. So I'm looking forward to seeing what ANS is going to bring to this. But I do find it funny, like how many people are criticizing the shock on this, knowing that ANS was handpicked by Krusty. So all of these people are doubting the scouting potential of one of the most proven head coaches in the Overwatch League. Really makes you think. We'll see. But anyways, outside of that, we do have a little bit of Overwatch League news in regards to maps, because we do have the first map pool that will be in play for the first 6 weeks of competition. Now, the map pool does feature all 5 control maps to the rotation, so you have Ilios, Busan, Lishane Tower, Oasis, and Nepal, with control being played as a tiebreaker round. And, you know, as Booger had alluded to, like, there is no mandatory map 4. Like, if you win the first 3, you don't have to play more. So, in regards to maps on Assault, we have Hanamura, Horizon Lunar Colony, and Temple of Anubis, so everyone can rejoice knowing that Paris is not in the map pool yet.
Okay, Paris is my favorite map. I've been saying it since it came out. Paris is awesome, and it gets way too much hate. I don't understand it.
No, I'm glad it's gone. I'm not gonna. I'm glad it's gone.
Okay,
Booger is
Paris-
in a boat all on his own.
Paris is infinitely better than Lunar Colony. You know, I can see the argument like in Hanamura or Temple of Anubis better, but Lunar Colony might be the worst map in the
It
game,
has
in my
space.
opinion.
You can be in space. You can be in space. I would like to say that on Control it has all 5 maps, and it's going to continue that during the whole season. There's not going to be any Control maps out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hate any of those maps, get ready to see all of them. But I like these maps.
Wait, did we list them? Did we go?
No, I just went through the Assault.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
on Hybrid, of course, we have the tried and true esports standard old school Overwatch map of Kings Row with Eichenwald and Blizzard World. Your escort maps are Junkertown, so expect some 8-7 rounds. Havana and Dorado. So of course, you know, obviously the season is coming up here in like 5 weeks at this point, something like that. I lose track. It kicks off February 8th, but all these maps are going to be in the rotation until March 21st. Alright, so obviously, you know, we got some pretty staple maps here as a whole. And, you know, I'm glad to see that we are going to have a map rotation. I'm fine with having all of the control maps in just because it's only going to be used as that tiebreaker. And, you know, if you're London, you're probably, like, not too thrilled about that. Just because, you know, Ilios is always going to be there. But, you know, at least they have 4 other options to kind of choose from on that end.
Yeah, I think the map pool it's a pretty good set. The only one I'm not a fan of is Lunar Colony, but that's just me. Seeing King's Roll and Eichenwald, those are like 2 of the most popular and seems to be maps that people like to play a lot. And you know, it's what I'm curious to see is historically Junkertown. We've seen Widowmaker on Junkertown when it wasn't a Widowmaker meta. So maybe the teams got the map rotations just the, you know, say like the 23rd or whenever ONS got signed. Because it does look like we got some, you know, Junkertown can be a good Widow map, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a meta where we get Widow and on Havana too. So I think that those will be very interesting to watch the first few weeks of the season.
I mean, to be fair, most of like the hybrid maps, at least Eichenwald and Blizzard World, have at least one point that has been dedicated to Widow for a substantial amount of time. Same with Junkertown, because that was a lot of double sniper even prior to like the El Presidente compositions that we did see, which we're probably not going to be seeing a ton of with some of the recent changes on that front. But in order, like looking at this map pool, like are there any standout ones for you?
Dorado. I despise Dorado. I've never liked Dorado. Mostly because I've seen most of the teams of my teams that I want to win always lose on Dorado. Like the Valiant beat Gladiators the stage 4 playoffs of season 1 on Dorado, and I got really sad off that. I'd never liked that map, but I'm excited for Junkertown, just like what Booger said, because Junkertown always shows different metas than any other map. And King's Row Eichenwald's fun. I'm fine with that. Blizzard World's all right, but all the rest, it's good map pool. Honestly, it's a good start.
I'm curious if as the season goes on, they'll be shifting the map pools more to mirror the comp map pools, since that's a thing that we have now. I think that would be actually a really cool and a smart idea for them to do, is to just mirror the map pools that are in comp, except with the control you'll want to have all 5 for tiebreaker reasons. You don't want the same map multiple times in a series. But one of the things about Overwatch League that is so cool is you can watch pros play and then turn on your computer and play as well. So to have that mirroring what they do in comp, I think that's just one of the best decisions they can make as far as map pool goes.
Well, it does kind of like lead into us believing that if they are going to try to patch the game for the Overwatch League, they would probably try to do it with the introduction of the new map pool. So it might be. I highly doubt we're gonna get an update every 6 weeks in regards to balance patches in the actual Overwatch. So that might be a little too far fetched. But this would kind of like mean like we could potentially see 2, maybe 3 balance updates across the season going into 2020 here.
Yeah, that does point like that would be a good spot to patch, because no one wants to see the entire season on the same patch. And without there being the stage breaks, they have to have somewhere to slot it in. So that does just seem the logical spot.
With another opportunity at, of course, mid-season for the All-Star break. Now, outside of that, we do have one other bit of news, and this is coming from the Florida Mayhem, who were actually doing something pretty interesting. I don't know whether or not the NHL is going to have anything to say about this because of the naming. But the Mayhem are running an invitational tournament in conjunction with Elo Hell Esports, which they are calling the Mayhem Winter Classic, which is going to be taking place here on January 4th and January 5th. Which would be this Saturday and Sunday. So what this is a 16-team tournament that has collegiate Overwatch teams as well as teams out of contenders. So this is going to be a double elimination tournament. It's going to have, kind of like a smaller prize pool of $7,500. But, they kind of like announced this as well as a summer melee, which is going to be another invitational that they are going to put on. And we only know half of the teams as of right now. Now, the first teams that they invited to the Winter Classic were Uprising Academy. So I'm really curious to see whether or not Rhino is going to be playing in this. We have Third Impact, who I know just announced their new roster here either today or yesterday. I know it was pretty recent. You have Maryville, who's one of the collegiate teams. Then you have Old Man Strength, who, had pretty good results in the Breaking Barriers tournament. And then for the second wave, we have Tea Party, Second Wind, GG, Simplicity, and Revival. So a lot of contenders caliber teams there. But, there's some pretty notable names probably missing from this, but since it is an NA tournament, obviously, that doesn't bode too well for some of the academy teams since, well, most of the NA teams don't exist anymore on that front, so, you're not going to see XL2 Academy, you're not going to be seeing the Gladiators Legion because they don't exist at this point. But are there any teams in particular out there that you guys want to see being invited with these 8 remaining slots? Because, I mean, you look at the collegiate teams right now, and, we talked about the Harrisburg Storm earlier tonight. Like, is that a likely candidate to be invited to this?
I think it'd be very likely to see them invited, especially with the team Elk was on made it to the finals of Breaking Barriers, I do believe. So just to, he's had some success in this preseason little tournaments that they've been doing. Yeah, I would really would like to see the full lineup that's going to be on here, but the thing I'm most excited about is to watch and really see what the meta is going to be leading in. Those open tournaments, there was we had a little bit of a consensus of what we're going to see, but with this being invitational, I think we might have a little less of like the one trick teams and the people trying to pull memes off, and we'll see more close to what the first couple weeks of Overwatch League is going to look like. And I think it'll give us a lot of information on how to do our standings just based on what we're going to see the competitive metas to be.
This tournament is super exciting because we haven't had Overwatch in a while. I'm really just excited to have more Overwatch. I'm excited to see some of these teams as well. I think their impact has made a lot of improvements internally, so I'm really hoping that the external for them. But as you guys said, I think I really want to see Harrisburg in here, and some other collegiate teams that I don't know. Just teams that I don't know, players I don't know, playing and seeing how good they are. Revival is one that has Aspen. I want to see how good they are together. I haven't seen them play a lot. I know they played in the Breaking Barriers tournament, but I didn't watch it. So I'm really this is a cool tournament. I'm happy it's happening, especially since it's so soon.
Yeah, unfortunately, Revival, their merchandise is a lot better than the actual team. Like, I'll be honest. Their merch is straight fire.
Yeah.
Like, they have some of the best merchandise available in regards to really any Overwatch team out there. Like, I highly recommend you checking out their stuff on that end. Unfortunately, the results just haven't been there for them here as of yet. But at the end of the day, there's always, this discussion about how exactly you have the tiers in regards to professional Overwatch play. You of course have, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and a lot of people don't quite know where to put collegiate in this entire discussion, so I really want to see how Maryville is going to be doing against some of these contenders teams who a lot of people would, classify as tier 2, so I'm looking forward to that, but, for me, it's also, we don't really see a lot of these Overwatch League teams actually using their tournament licenses to support, the Path to Pro scene. So I'm really hoping that this is a first step towards other teams looking to do the same, because all of these teams have the opportunity to do, tournaments like this, but they just really haven't put forth, the effort to do so. We're, planning everything out and all that. So I have to say, I'm really happy to see the Mayhem actually partaken in something like this, and it's not just a one and done thing, because they also have something planned for the summer. But if Harrisburg isn't involved, I'm going to be pretty disappointed on that end, so hopefully they will be in the next wave, so we can see how they're looking as they look to kind of defend their championship going into the new collegiate year.
Do y'all know of any other notable collegiate teams? I know that there is a collegiate team from Missouri or Mizzou, one of the Missouri colleges. Yeah, they have a collegiate team, but I honestly am not super familiar with a lot of the collegiate teams. I would almost be curious if maybe in the future some sort of merger between the collegiate scene and contenders would be possible to, have their own league or their own tournaments and stuff, but even like say have a climax where the champions of the collegiate scene plays top contenders teams. Stuff like that would be very cool just to get contenders and collegiate Overwatch just more publicity.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know going back to the Test Spot Championship, which was, I want to say like that was over the fall. Maryville was involved in that, as was Harrisburg. Harrisburg did win. Maryville University finished in third place. Um, One of the other teams, the team that was a runner-up, was the Utah Utes. But unfortunately, like if you go on Wikipedia, like none of these collegiate teams have like a Wikipedia page. Like they have stuff for like the tournaments, but not anything about who's on the teams or anything like that. But the other team listed that was in fourth place was the Orange Coast College. But it seems like for the most part, these are a lot of practically like unknown players. Like probably the most notable player that I'm seeing looking at the rosters here, at least for Maryville, you have Hypnot at the tank position, who was on Bazooka Puppies for a while, but more notably from Bermuda, which is a pretty notable NA team. But outside of that, like not really familiar with too many of the names here on that front, which is always exciting because like Harrisburg probably has the most notable names in like Insomniac, and Hobbs probably being the two more notable names. So hopefully we'll get to see them more and more because these have been guys who have been around the scene for quite some time in the tier 3 side. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll get Harrisburg, and maybe we'll see Collegiate overtake some of the tier 2 teams along the way, since a lot of these are kind of like middle in like tier 2 contenders teams so far.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this kind of will set like a blueprint for other teams to have similar events going on during the off season. It gives some like a little bit of buzz to stay with people about the Overwatch League, and there's also potential to use these tournaments for scouting. So they're getting these together right close to the beginning of the season. I think moving forward that these will be happening earlier, maybe earlier into December, like similar timing to like the Breaking Barriers tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And it could really help teams that are still scouting find players and see how they perform under a little bit more pressure than just a tryout or something like that, because there's with a tournament single double elimination, it just seems to be more pressure than any other way that you could compete.
Right. I don't think Florida's going to use it for scouting, but I do think it's going to be good scouting grounds for at least other contenders teams that maybe want to join, get better players, and just grow. But it's good. I think Florida Mayhem are really passionate about this tournament. I think it's going to turn out really well. Um, I know the social media manager is really passionate about this. I think he pushed for this really hard. So I think it's going to be a really good tournament. I'm really excited for it.
And with it being sponsored by Elo Hell, I would assume they're gonna have it casted, which
Mm-hmm.
just generally makes it more entertaining to watch. So that's a big plus too. Over, when we were watching some of the Breaking Barriers, we were watching just some of the players streaming, and while that's cool, there's just another level of not just professionalism, but just a better ability to see what's going on throughout the whole game when you have it being casted and getting different perspectives. So just to have that is going to make it, really fun to watch. So hopefully we'll see. I'm just really hoping that this is not like, oh, now every year there's a Florida tournament in the winter and a Florida tournament in the summer. I hope that this is just like a test to have more and more, not just the one. I think it's, has a lot of potential for what they could do with these style tournaments.
we'll see what the viewership is going to be looking like when you do compare it to something that was a little bit more meme oriented with the Breaking Barriers tournament. I know for me, like, looking at the third Impact roster here really quick, because they did make 4 recent additions here over the holiday week. They signed Carter, who was a prominent hit scan DPS. They also picked up Talio on loan, who was coming in from Jupiter. Prior to that, he was on Cyclops Athlete Gaming, but this is one of the more prominent names out of the Japan scene for Overwatch, because he's been involved with the World Cup for quite a few years. So I'm really anxious to see how this team is going to do. Plus, you have someone like Decon, who's been around the scene for quite some time at this point, like dating back to probably even fall 2016. So that's definitely going to be a team to watch for me on that front. See how Carter is going to do in this sort of environment. But with that being said, guys, definitely tune into this. Support Tier 2, support Tier 3 Overwatch. And hopefully we'll see some of these collegiate teams popping off, because I highly doubt Maryville will be the only collegiate team invited to this. Probably going to be 1 or 2 more, I would imagine, at that point. But with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's close out the show for tonight. So kind of a smaller episode this week, but, heading into the new year, of course, we will have our division previews. So expect a little bit lengthier episodes for the next 4 weeks headed into the new season. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things to do is to head over to iTunes and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We are always looking for ways to improve the show. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall. That is our podcast directory, which is available on our website. And then every Sunday night, I release a weekly recall, which is an episodic listing of all of the podcast episodes that were released within the prior week. So for more information on Overwatch Recall, be sure to follow us on Twitter at OW Recall. Now, if you would like to support, the podcast network in a couple of different ways, we do stream regularly over on Twitch. So any sort of Twitch Prime subs, which costs you absolutely nothing, greatly appreciated. You could also sub regularly, which is $4.99 at Tier 1. But, there is the alternative, which is our Patreon page, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So for more information, be sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/OWL Network. And we actually do have a new patron who signed up over the holidays. That is Agent Life 23, who has pledged in the Master tier. So, we'll shout him out basically every single show, just like we do with all our other Master and above patrons. So that would include, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, Kesha, and now Agent Life 23. So, join all of them in helping our network grow. Every little bit definitely helps with the podcast hosting costs that we do throughout the network. But with that being said, Booker, of course, we have a number of different ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
Yeah, if you want to contact our show through email, you can hit us up at contact@owlnshow.com. We have a website, which is www.owlnshow.com. The Twitter for our show is at @OWLNshow. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We have a Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. You can follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. And we are now a Twitch affiliate, so you can help support the show by subscribing. And we got Overwatch League Network airing every Monday at 7. Overwatch League by the Numbers is Tuesdays at 6, and that will be coming back next week, I believe. And you've got Heroes Never Die for Wednesdays at 5, and host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule, so you can be sure to get notified when everybody goes live. And then we've got Patreon, and that's what Totem talked about earlier. We can contact the host. You got Oh yeah, we do our own. Never mind. I kept going. My bad. You can I'm on Twitter and Twitch at Booger Brains, which is BOOGERBRAINZZ.
I am on Twitter at Anira _09.
And as for myself, of course, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. And I do stream Monday through Thursday at twitch.tv/TotallyDrunk, which we'll be back probably next week, just as I'm, working on stuff behind the scenes. But, just as a program update, OWL by the Numbers will be back starting next Tuesday. We do have 2 episodes planned with some of the Fantasy Overwatch League providers. So we'll have Soul Drink from highnoon.gg. Foul is coming on from fantasyowl.com. So we'll be talking to both of them about, what changes they have in store for their fantasy platforms heading into the new season. We'll also let you know about a newer one that recently popped up, which I'm not familiar with at all, but is app-based, so it's not like a website, so that might spark some interest from a lot of people as well. So check out OWL by the Numbers. It will be back next Tuesday night. But, until next time, guys, take care, have a good night, and we'll see you when we see you.